let's see what I did wrong. I felt like it was missing worse than it was before. Still don't see anything wrong with the coils. I'm not seeing anything. Everything is looking like it's assembled correctly. I don't know. I'm a little stumped. We're definitely over fueling. It's having trouble starting. It acts like it's always getting fuel. I know it's over fueling because I've had an injector overfuel before on the IDS and it goes up. Also, it's got a haze at idle. Now it's got bigger injectors, but it hazes a lot more than usual, and when you give it any bit of gas, it sits there and stutters and really bellows smoke. And then it starts to clean up a little bit once the engine's using the fuel, but it still never goes away. I'm gonna have to think on this one. I don't know. Or I'll just try something. I really need to make that flow bench. Okay, what I ended up doing, I emailed the company I bought the injector tips from. I may have mentioned it before, but it's not a big deal who I bought the injector tips for. I've had the injector parts for over a year, so maybe they sat for a long time. Something in it. I don't know. I didn't put them in immediately, so I don't know. I'm not going to sit and try to blame anybody. I just want to figure out what's wrong, and hopefully this would help anybody else identify or help them figure out which part is gone bad or whatever. So I talked to them and I said, I tore the injector down once. I suspected it was a spool valve issue. I put it back together. Still had a overfueling issue on number 3, and they said, why don't you just swap nozzles from injector to injector? So, you know, if I'm tearing the injector down, I can swap nozzles. So I pulled one out. This is injector. This is injector 1 right here. This is injector 3. So they're right next to each other in the engine. One was firing fine, or good enough. It wasn't doing what number 3 was doing. So I tore it down, tore down number 3. I had already had it torn down, and I swapped injector tips. So the rest of the injector is the same. So theoretically, if I still continue to have an issue, it's something inside the body of number 3 injector. But I just rigged up something. I'm going to stick these injectors in the head that I have rigged up with fuel. I'm going to take the camera over and show that once I get it set up. So, heading over there. What I set up here, obviously cylinder head. You can see I got a fuel line running down to the pump down here. That one comes in here. I don't know if you can see it. There's arrows right here. This one's pointing in, so like return. The one coming from this side here, it's coming down, and it supplies the head. And this is the feed tube from this little tank of diesel I have. So it goes through the cylinder head. This is the return here to that return, and that returns to the tank. You can see it's a crude little setup I have here. So all I'm going to do right now is tighten. See if I can find a good place for the camera. I'm not going to, these two injectors at the end down here are injectors I just have as backup cores basically. So I'm just going to snug these down until they get, I can basically be right before the crush sleeve or the copper washer can get crushed. And I'm going to do the same thing with those. Basically what I'm trying to do is see if possibly I have an injector tip that is internally has an issue, and if it's leaking with just fuel pressure on it, base fuel pressure. Okay, and then I'm going to put power to the pump. I actually just need to make any pressure in the system, I just need to plug off the... I'm not seeing any fuel up here. Which one was it? They had number... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This is the injector, would be number 3. I made a little mark on the connector. see each tip sticking through. There's the one in there, and those two. I'm not getting any leaks. Okay, I didn't see any external leaks on either of these injectors. Wasn't leaking from the tip, anything. This is actually going to be like kind of the area that I do my flow bench. So that's going to be the engine. I'm going to spin that with an electric motor, and that will then, basically the engine will be the reservoir. I'm going to weld a heating element in the oil pan. That way I can heat the oil to roughly 160, 180. That way I can simulate hot oil. Then I'll have the high pressure pump here. I'll have a line coming up here to the oil rail. And then I can take the oil, I'll have a rocker box on there and everything. And I will then be able to put the oil rail on top of the injectors and test up to 4 injectors at one time. Initially, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Something I can do would be nice, and then I can test all kinds of things. I can pay attention to my flow rate going in, and the amount of fuel the injector uses, and measure that with. I'll probably have the cylinder head sitting up higher. That way I can slide some glass vials. Is it vials or beakers? Whatever. And something, graduated cylinders underneath there, so I can actually measure the fuel coming out. And then we can also, it'll let us watch around the injector and watch here. I mean, the oil rail will be on there, but we'll definitely be able to watch to see if we have injectors leaking from somewhere or spool valves leaking. Maybe I'll even make something separate that each one's fed off of a hose, and that way we can really watch everything. But okay, now I'm going to put these 2 injectors back in the engine, and we'll see what happens. Okay, I'm back in the truck. I installed the injectors last night. Again, I didn't film it. I filmed quite a bit in this video as it is. I put 3 back in its spot. I put 1 back in its spot, but I swapped the injector nozzles, or the tips. And I went to power balance, and I didn't mean to. All I really want is ICP related. I'm going to do Ficum M voltage. That's the voltage that our Ficum sees that we need to pay attention to. That's about it. I just want to see. This one's got a 58 volt Ficum upgrade, but it's actually only showing 54. It's really weird. But 48 volts didn't always show 48 all the time. Okay, let's cycle the key. Got good fuel pressure. There, we're back up 5 volt, whatever. Okay. As you can see, our IPRs come up. It's demanding 1500, or that's what the engine's wanting to see. We're slowly climbing. Okay, we still got a misfire. Let's see where that's at. Still number 3. So number 3 is still our problem. So it is not our nozzle. Though 1 is awfully high now also. Let's get some heat in it. Maybe we got some air built up. Well, I do not believe the injector tip was a problem. What do you think it is? Well, I guess we're pulling 3 back out. Okay, I think we're on our 3rd time putting injectors back in. So first time, I'll go back over it, even though you guys probably just see me say this. Number 3 was definitely overfueling. Pulled it out, cleaned up the spool valve, thought it was some of the Loctite, which I don't know if I'll ever use again. If I do, it'd be just on the tip of the, not the spool valve side of the bolt, but the, of the nut on the bolt, but the outside threads. That way possibly the nut won't slide off. Anyway, so I did that. No real change. I swapped nozzles between 1 and 3. So I disassembled the injectors, swapped 1 and 3 nozzles. That didn't really change much, other than the more I let it run, the better it got. But it still started horrible, under 50 degrees, or 50 degrees or lower. It was around 60 or so, but it didn't start good. Took a lot to start it, a lot of cranking. I was making oil pressure, but it just wouldn't fire. What do we got here? I need swap nozzles. I was able to go drive the truck for the first time. I also put some hot shot stiction eliminator in it, thinking, maybe we'll see what it does. Didn't seem to help. Injectors were just too far gone. I'd imagine it's all on the spool valve, because once it got running, got hot, things seemed to idle fine. Had pretty good power. Obviously, you could have more. Now, to hopefully give it a shot, I took for passenger bank, I took all those injectors out and took all the spool valve bodies off the old injectors, which ran fine. With those injectors, things started up, ran fine. So I pulled those spool valve bodies off, took the spool valve bodies off the 30% 190 injectors, swapped them, and that's where I also learned how to pull that snap ring out, because I didn't want to get new D-rings. So now I have the injectors back in after swapping spool valves and body. So let's see what it does. I'm going to crank on it now. There's ICP.